Welcome to the HerStory Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, B.R.I.D.G.E, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is B.R.I.D.G.E here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another amazing young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi there, I am Chelsea Hardesty, and I am based in Denver, Colorado in the United States. And I am 31 years old. I'm a mother and a wife, and I am navigating years of dismissal and misdiagnosis, and currently healing 6 months from my post-op of my 7th surgery for endometriosis. I realized my story wasn't rare and that it was patterned. So I moved from survival mode into advocacy, and that's what led me into collaboration and sharing my story as much as I can.
So go into the story and the journey you've been on for the next 10 minutes, Chelsea. Then I'll come in with the Q&A.
Okay. So I began wondering who I was, and if no one believed me, who was I to recognize even myself? Who was I when my teachers began to think I was exaggerating, when I was passing out in school hallways, on the playground? The response was never a concern. It always was a type of doubt. When employees began to question my reliability instead of asking if I was actually okay, I began to slip away even more. When my body was screaming and the world around me kept saying that I was fine, I lived in that question, who am I, for years. And when you live in that question long enough, it starts to really reshape who you actually believe you are. So there's a quote that has stuck with me through all of this. The eye doesn't see what the mind does not know. It's centuries old, and somehow I still see that it's painfully relevant to this day. Because if the mind is trained to look for the wrong thing, it can look directly at the truth and still miss it. And that's exactly what happened to me. When medicine reduces women's pain, it doesn't just misdiagnose disease, it also delays the scientific progress alongside it. After 16 years, I officially sought out help, and I started undergoing my first surgery. It was a laparoscopic surgery. It lasted only 35 minutes. I woke up, I was very fuzzy. My ears were still ringing. It was that kind of fuzzy underwater feeling when the anesthesia hasn't quite fully left your body. The room was eerily quiet, too quiet. So I started frantically seeking out a hand, a nurse, a face, just to try to figure out kind of what was happening and what had happened while I was under. But the responses were not really comforting. They were very vague, very dismissive, and sort of detached. Finally, the surgeon came in, and he didn't sit down next to me, and he didn't slow down. And he basically just said that I was clean as a whistle, to get my mind right and to focus on my eating habits. And those words didn't just land, they really stung. And it was pretty sharp Because in that moment, I felt something completely inside me shift, like I was being thrown backwards through time, back into high school where I was passing out, being told it was stress, anxiety, all in my head. I was going back to the mental hospitals because the pain that I felt wasn't believed. My reality didn't match their understanding. I was being thrown back to the self harm and suicide attempts, the strain on the relationships that couldn't survive because no one else could see me or believe me. Even after escaping a very dangerous domestic violence, I was living with the physical damage from it, a permanent back injury, and it was a reminder of what happened to my body when I became overpowered, not only by the system, but my life around me. And I was completely ignored. So when he told me to work on my mental health, it was not just dismissive for me. It reopened wounds that I have been fighting to survive. And yet, in that moment, there was a small voice inside of me, a very, very small flicker, that gut feeling, and it didn't go away. When I walked away from that surgery, that gut feeling continued to follow me. It was heavy, it was persistent, and it was unshakable. I really couldn't explain it, and I still can't really explain it to this day. It was just that feeling. And I knew something wasn't right with what he told me. So I listened to it, and I did what many patients ended up having to do. I researched, I reached out, and I connected with communities and resources that I didn't even know existed. And I probably would have never known existed if I didn't take that into my own hands. People who understood what I felt like to not believe were surrounding me. Within 1 week of that surgery, I was actually scheduled with an endometriosis specialist almost 2 hours away for a second opinion. And within 2 weeks after that surgery, I was scheduled for an emergency surgery, which she had actually pushed insurance to approve. By that point, I was incredibly sick. I really had nowhere else to go. I didn't know where else to go. And I was on my last straw. But I had that gut feeling, and it kept me moving. When I woke up from that second surgery 4 weeks later, I had the same thing. I did the same thing that I did before. I frantically started searching through the fuzzy underwater feeling. I called for a nurse, but this time it was actually different. She came right to my bedside. She didn't rush anything. She didn't deflect it. She took both hands and she held my hand, and she just held it. And she said, "I'm going to get the doctor." And when the surgeon came in, she didn't just stand across the room, hover over me, and try to escape as fast as she could. She took my hand and she told me what she found. Endometriosis had taken over my colon, my rectum, and my bladder. Everything that I had felt, everything that had been told that was all in my head, it was real. And in that moment, the weight that I had been carrying for years just lifted. To be believed is to be alive, to thrive. It's to exist. My story isn't rare, it's patterned. And endometriosis affects millions, yet for decades, it's been boxed into a narrow definition, a reproductive condition instead of what it is, a systemic inflammatory disease. And when we shrink women's pain, we shrink that science that goes along with it. What isn't believed isn't studied, and what isn't studied isn't funded, and what isn't funded doesn't advance. Medical dismissal doesn't hurt individuals. It slows entire fields of research. After 7 surgeries in 8 years, I realized something powerful, that my experience wasn't just a story, that it was also data. Lived experience is data. And alongside 3 other women with no pharmaceutical funding, no lobbyists, we helped secure federal language recognizing endometriosis as a chronic systemic inflammatory disease. And that shift matters because definitions decide everything: what gets researched, what gets taught, what gets diagnosed, who gets believed. And when the definition changes, science moves. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Who are we if we are not believed? Because listening to me and believing my story alongside others is just step one. Belief opens the door, and action is what changes that actual system. Once we stop reducing women's pain, we don't just save lives, we actually move science forward.
Wow, Chelsea, you went through so much to get to this point. And the sad thing is, your story is more common than uncommon.
Yeah.
A lot of women suffer in silence, they suffer for years, being misdiagnosed when they're really quite ill. And your persistence is what got you to this point, right?
Yeah.
So, how many years of medical dismissal transformed into this national advocacy and systems reform?
It was about 16 years until I received my diagnosis. And since my diagnosis, in the past 8 years, I've gone through 7 different surgeries. So during that 8-year process, I've been able to find myself, find out what's wrong with myself, and shift for systemic change as well. I've been able to be rebirthed in a way.
So crazy. Now, you say lived experience is fundamental. What does that mean in practical terms for researchers and policymakers?
For instance, ACOG has begun to shift to a clinical diagnosis setting. And to partake in a clinical diagnosis setting, you have to listen to the patient. You have to
Yeah.
believe the patient. So if we're going to start pushing that in the systems, we actually have to start listening to those lived experiences a little more. And to be able to do that, we have to believe what we are saying and what we're being told by the patients and by the community.
Wow. And now your work has transformed and changed the lives of so many. Tell me, how did art and literature become tools of justice in your work?
Yeah. So when I was going through the height of trying to figure out who I was, being tossed back and forth between specialists and mental hospitals, um, the one coping skill that I connected with was art and self expression through poetry as well. As I continued losing myself, I also lost that coping skill for a while. And up until my diagnosis, I finally found myself and have been able to navigate myself back to that. And I've realized how self expression can also elaborate and tell that lived experience story. So I have been collaborating with amazing patients on a global scale, and we have kicked off what is known as the Lived Experiences of Endometriosis, and it's a traveling art gallery. And we've been showcased in UK, New York, and next week we're actually going to be at the Colorado State House for a week, and we're also going to be in Las Vegas closer to the end of the month. So we're trying to bring that lived experience and the visuals that also go alongside it to help us be believed a little bit more and to shape that impact in not only the system but also general society.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what has been the most powerful reaction with the traveling art gallery that you've witnessed so far?
I think just people not understanding the true depth of what comes along with this disease.
Mm.
And the general public, and even like in the school, we are just taught that it's just a painful period. So when people see the actual representation that's beside it, um, I think it really it's gutting for some people, and it's really hard to navigate and to explain without pictures. And that's why I think the pictures do a lot of justice to helping shift that visual that we really need for the change.
So now you've helped to shape federal research recognition in the US. What shifted with this?
So again, for about 100 years, we have been boxed in with endometriosis being a reproductive aged woman's condition. And now taking that shift to being a chronic systemic whole body inflammatory disease shows the impact of how endometriosis has been found in all 11 body systems, not just the reproductive. It's also been found in fetuses and postmenopausal individuals, which shows it's not just of reproductive age. And it's also been found in cis men, which shows it's not just a woman condition as well. So it's in that, and all of that data has been documented for 75 years, yet we've been just sitting in this box, not moving.
That is incredible. So what resistance have you faced when challenging traditional medical narratives?
I think the biggest thing is discussing the cases of cisgender men. It seems that a lot of women like to keep endometriosis as almost like an empowerment tool, which I don't think is very fair, because a lot of women don't feel empowered suffering from it. And of course, the prevalence is going to show higher in women because we menstruate, which that itself is an inflammatory process, which is going to exacerbate an inflammatory condition. So we are going to see it a lot more, but we also have not been looking in men. So if we start looking, what are we going to find?
Yeah. That's interesting when you start uncovering these things.
Yeah.
Now, can you walk us through the B.R.I.G.E framework and how someone listening today can apply it in their own field?
Yeah. So the B.R.I.G.E framework is basically something that I started trying to connect lived experience with data and the actual execution that is alongside it.
Yes.
So the B is believe, and to be believed is step one.
Yeah.
And E is to collect the evidence after being believed. You're going to collect the evidence, and then you are going to I'm so sorry. I'm spelling believe, not bridge. I'm like I'm so sorry. My daughter is also asking me questions from
I can
afar.
hear
So
you. I can hear
okay.
you on there.
I do apologize.
Feel
Yes.
free to talk to her if you have to. You know, this is a woman's podcast. We're going to have the little one
I
stepping
know.
in. So it's all fine. If you need to take time to talk to her, do that.
So yes, okay, so B is for believe, and then we're going into the B.R.I.G.E framework, not belief framework. So R is going to be recorded. So then we could believe it, we're going to record it. And then how are we going to integrate that? B.R.I, integrate. And we're going to integrate that into research priorities, basic education, and policy, which is kind of where I'm going through this bridge process as we speak, which has kind of helped me. I keep talking about bridging. So what more to say? Let's talk about B.R.I.G.E framework, right? We go into design. How are we going to integrate this without designing something? So B.R.I.D, design systems that reflect the full biological reality and not just those outdated one-angled theory.
Yes.
And after it's designed, we're going to go into generation. How are we going to generate measurable change? How are we going to generate those definitions, the funding, and updated standards of care?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have elevate. Once we go through the entire process, we're going to have to elevate not only the current generation, but the next generation so that they don't spend decades proving that they're real and that their experience matters. So that's the B.R.I.G.E framework, starting, of course, with step one, believe, so we can end up elevating patients by the end.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Now, What does justice mean to you in the context of healthcare?
I believe that going into at least here in America, the Constitution, we have our rights, and I believe healthcare is a right, and we also have a right to due process. So when we're being told by medical institutions such as the hospitals that are also taking funding from the government, that are also not supposed to be discriminating and turning people away, that's a focus of justice there, because they're denying rights that have been established by law. And that's
Yeah.
kind of my angle of trying to push beyond simple definition changes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to seek out that federal reform and systemic reframing all the way around, all the way down into med schools and education, all the way from as soon as they graduate. And I believe that we need to establish many surgeons and doctors that are already in the field now with updated training so we can prevent harm and injury and just overall confusion,
Yeah.
because that is a big impact, not just on that sense of self, but also the economy,
Yeah.
and it's a trail.
Oh my gosh. So, how do we move from reactive care to preventative justice?
I think right now, honestly, for a good 20 years, we have been in a reactive framework.
Yeah.
We've been screaming, we've been begging, we've been asking and connecting with big funding agencies to try to make shift change. But
Mhm.
then those agencies are asking for funding to be in a specific ideology, and that is what is holding us back as well.
Okay.
So we can go into I do apologize. She's calling me. 1 second.
It's
Hold on.
okay. Go for it.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes. Okay. Hold on. I'll be right there. Okay.
How
Okay.
old is she?
Okay. She's 4.
Oh,
So it's almost a need after need.
I
Okay.
love.
Can you repeat that? I do apologize.
You want me to go back to the last question?
Yes, I know I
We're
was
talking
talking
about
about.
how we can move from reactive care to preventative justice.
Yes. So we can sit there and scream, we can rally, we could beg all we want. Long
Yeah.
story short, um, but that action, what is the action, what is the ask, and how are you going to do that? And not many people know how to answer that question, and that's
Yes.
another reason that I have also created, with our amazing team that has made history, a advocacy workshop to give people those tools to take their lived experience and turn it into action with their lawmakers, or even give resources in a form of, one big book and say, hey, this is what the data says. What are
Yeah.
you going to do about it? That's the actionable effect that I think is going to do wonders. And that's why I think being able to train our community and give them these resources, and even re-educate them on how civics and the government works,
Yeah.
that's been eye-opening. Just the past few workshops, being able to reestablish that knowledge with everybody and giving them that confidence as well. So
Absolutely love what you've done. So, what role does belonging play in healing for women navigating endometriosis?
I think that it makes you feel like you have that purpose, that you belong. For a long time, I felt like I was just a burden because nobody could understand me. I couldn't understand myself. I couldn't explain myself. I was looked at as a liar. And when I was at my sickest, people thought I was on drugs. So if you're living a life like that, you're not going to feel much worth. So being able to be believed is to give somebody life.
Oh, wow. Yeah, a lot of people are suffering in silence. So, for women who feel silenced or dismissed right now, what would be your message to them?
Definitely don't give up, which sounds odd, especially being in the deepest of depths.
Wow.
But I can, for once, say that I'm glad that I didn't give up and that I can look back and say that I fought for myself
Hmm.
and don't take no for an answer. Don't take the first surgeon's discovery as truth. You are allowed to get a second, third, and even fourth opinion. If your gut doesn't feel like it's right,
Yes.
listen.
Listen to it. I love that. Oh, how can creatives, researchers, and policymakers collaborate more effectively, do you think?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is kind of putting ego aside. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people think that they're going to be the next best one or they know more than the next. But once we begin to collaborate and come together, I think that's going to show a big shift. And we're already kind of seeing it in the patient community who have been coming together to advocate and push some of these surgeons to also speak out and kind of push their ego aside. It's starting to reflect and trickle down now that the patients are getting louder.
I love that. My last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment. And I'm going to teleport you back to start to the younger you, this young woman who knew something was wrong. And she kept asking for help and being blocked and being gaslit. If you could go back and give yourself three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be? Just in case there's somebody who's listening to this podcast who's in the position you were in a few years ago.
I think that's very hard because I'm still struggling on giving myself little nuggets of wisdom here and there. I think the biggest thing is not to let the outside voices from society become internalized because that's a huge factor of finding your own self is how other people see you ends up how you see yourself. You know yourself, you know your body, you know what you're experiencing. Fight for yourself. That's definitely the first nugget of wisdom. I think the second nugget of wisdom, definitely research anything and everything. And especially this day and age with social media and AI, don't take the first thing that you read on social media or even in the news as, as truth. There are many social media and very prevalent news agencies that report endometriosis incorrectly, even to this day. And it is causing harm in our community. So I urge you to also self research. And number three, honestly, give yourself some love, whether it is taking a warm bath or just focusing on something you enjoyed doing. Like for me, like I said, it was art. For the longest time, it was art. And I only lost that because I didn't know that I could use my voice and fight for myself and do my own research. So I lost myself. Try not to lose yourself. Put yourself into what you love. Try not to lose hold of that. And don't let the outside world shape your inner perspective.
Absolutely beautiful. Last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she is sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children and her grandchildren. If I could teleport you into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what are you going to say to her when you finally meet her? And I'll tell you why I love asking women this question. A lot of women don't realize that the wise woman already exists within us.
Yeah.
So we look outside of ourselves for answers, for solutions, and we fail to go within. But you are very in tune with this woman. She is the one who has moved mountains to get you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
What will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I think I would tell my older self, definitely thank you for not falling victim to even the internal voices mixed with the external voices, and to persist and push through. And even when the outside world was being negative against being an advocate in my first few years, I didn't let that hold me back. And that has gotten me to where I am now. So I'm very thankful that there has been, I guess I could say that that older self would be my gut feeling telling me I got this. So thank you, older self, for letting me know that I don't need to give up and giving me that feeling that I still can't explain to this day, but letting me know that I'm not alone, even in my most loneliest moments.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I have a little game that I play in that I talk to her. I talk to the essence of who I am becoming. I know she's real. I know she's wise. I know she's out there waiting for me to catch up with her. So sometimes when it gets really hard, I tune in through my meditation and my prayers, and I ask her simple questions like, so what is the next step? And
Yeah.
I sit with that, and it is magical when you tune in.
Yeah.
So thank you for seeing her, for hearing her, for trusting her.
Yeah.
Not women trust themselves. And what you've done is absolutely incredible. Thank you,
Thank
Chelsea.
you. It's been really hard learning to trust myself and finally getting to that process. It's been really eye opening. And like I said, it's been rebirthing. And my mom has even said herself, watching me go through this has been like seeing me be rebirthed. So
Wow, that's beautiful. Is there anything else I should have asked you and I didn't?
I don't think so. I think we've really covered a good bit. I mean, I could go on and talk about everything that needs done and things and the history, but I think this really sums it up well.
This was awesome. No, thank you so much, Chelsea. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. The Her
Thank you,
Story
Pat.
Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing woman. Tag anyone you know on this podcast. This is an issue that affects so many women.
Yes.
Please share it with your family, share it with your friends. Get this information to as many women as we can. And
Yes.
Chelsea, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm B.R.I.D.G.E, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story. Wonderful. Thank you